I'm going to talk about science fiction. And the topic we thought we would do is just how does science fiction change the perception, the public perception of what a space elevator is? And if you don't know me, I'm a science fiction author. I started writing in 2017. My first book was Quantum Space. I've written 8 books now, all hard science fiction. They're all available at Amazon. I've sold something like 250,000 books altogether so far. And when I talk to highly technical people like yourselves, I like to describe my stories as starting from a base in real science. And then I tell an entertaining tale that might stretch the truth a bit, but I hope to do it in a believable way. So last year, I wrote a uh, a book that included majorly featured a space elevator. And so I did that through or with a lot of help from the people at ISEC. So I really appreciate your help last year, and thank you for um, inviting me back again this year. So let me let me first talk about what the book is. And the best way to do that is let me just show you a very short video that is our book trailer.
No sound.
Oh, you're not getting any sound?
I'm
Okay.
not.
Okay. Sorry about that. It was just background music anyway. Um, so the good news is that First Ascent, when it was released within 2 days here, it already shot up to the #3 hot new release on Amazon. That's a really hard list to make, and I was really happy to see that that happened. By the way, if anybody else out there is an aspiring author, I know there are some people who are writing stories. If you want to know the details of how you get on that list, I can certainly help you understand how that works. But it was great to see First Ascent did really well right out of the gate. So here's some of the numbers that I have for this book. It published May 6th. I've sold about 5,000 copies so far. It's ebook and paperback. It's available at Amazon. The audiobook, I have an audiobook publisher, and they are working on the audiobook right now. I think they are talking about November for that release. I got about 1,000 or more reader ratings so far, averaging about 4.5, which is very good for a science fiction book. And it's been 18 weeks in Amazon's top 100, and that's also something that every author really wants to see. Here's a few things that our readers are saying so far. When I write a science fiction story, I try to inspire, teach, and entertain all at the same time. And sometimes that means that the accuracy takes a backseat to the entertainment, but I always try to set the dial as close to accuracy as I can. So I do get a lot of comments back about the science in the story, and I'm really proud of that. The storytelling itself is another aspect. And then in this case, I wanted to hear back about space elevators. And you can see that some people commented that they learned about space elevators from the book. Um, The last comment there, I have to apologize to the true experts who are those of you who are here. You're the ones who should be taking a bow for the material science and other aspects. So I appreciate all the things that you've done for me to help make sure that I'm creating a fictional version of what could be a plausible space elevator. So I'm just going to review just briefly what the fictional space elevator is. I did cover some of this in last year's conference, so I'm not going to rehash that again. But basically, the first book describes 6 space tethers. Each has twin ribbons, one for going up, one for going down. I did use the graphene laminate that ISEC told me. This is the most likely material, so that's what they're made out of. I added carbon nanotubes mostly for story purposes. I wanted to have a power line and I wanted to have a communications line that run up and down the tether. So we have some nanotubes in there as well. I added some programmable nanobots for instant repair of the tether. It's nice to be able to do that in science fiction. You just conjure them up and there they are. So these are ocean-based platforms for the most part. They have multiple stations going up the tether, and they're reached by this VPod maglev ascender. It can carry up to 40 people. It's got a cargo bay for satellites, and my graphic artist created that 3D image for me, so you'll see that quite a bit. A few more details. One edge of the ribbon is for the ascender. The other edge is for station support cables. You can see the V-pod climbing. And it's called a V-pod because it's got V-shaped wings that help keep the center of mass over the tether. So I thank people like Larry Bartosek for helping me understand those kind of details. And in any fictional account, there is definitely some fine print, including the fact that the maglev can reach speeds of 2 kilometers per second. But some of the fine print doesn't even make the story. So there's unlimited power. We got self-repairing, frictionless braking, and radiation shielding. And so these are the things that maybe experts like yourselves might notice in a story, but in reality, most readers don't. So there are some things that are not not explicitly listed in the story. So why should you care about a fictional space elevator? What's the point here? You're visionaries, you're technologists. What's the deal about a fictional space elevator? And I would answer that with one word, and that's inspiration. Done well, science fiction can sway public opinion. It can prime the pump for public funding, and it can introduce scientific or technical concepts to the general population via entertainment. And I truly believe it can move the needle from it can't be done to I can't wait to see it. So I ask you, where do you think the International Space Station came from? I'll definitely point back to 1968 as the beginning of the International Space Station. Okay, so when I started thinking about this conference topic, I knew it would help if I had some data about how science fiction affects the public perception of space elevators. And so I have access to a lot of readers. I have about 3,000 people on my mailing list. And so I thought I'd survey them and get some answers back from them. Now, in any email list, it's really hard to get people to interact. But last week, I sent out a 20-question survey to find out what they knew about space elevators and how their view of space elevators may have changed after they read my book. I have about 190 responses so far, and these are from pretty well-educated people. I understand who they are. Many they have at least a college degree. Some of them have higher degrees. They're 79% men, 21% women. They're mostly over 50. So I've got a few survey charts here. I'll show you the answers for the questions that I asked. So here's two. I asked them how did they learn about space elevators, and there's several books there, including my own. Obviously, Arthur C. Clarke is the main one that people have learned from. There's also other media. The Foundation TV series has a pretty gargantuan space elevator that comes crashing down. Um, I also asked them how my book, First Ascent, might have altered their understanding of space elevators. And you can see that it's kind of split. Some say it significantly improved, and quite a few said it didn't change it at all. Again, these are pretty savvy science fiction readers. So then I asked them, did they think that space elevators would be operational in the next 50 years? And you can see there's quite a spread there. And that kind of surprised me a little bit how many people said, very unlikely or unlikely. So there's still some skepticism, even from people who are well-read, understand the concept. There's still some skepticism as to whether we're going to actually make this operational or not. I thought that was interesting. I wasn't expecting that either. I also asked them, or I think it was really nice to hear back from them that they understood clearly that the cost of getting payload into orbits is one of the significant factors, advantages that a space elevator would provide. So they're also they well understand that. Then I asked them if they'd heard of ISEC, and I did spell it out in the actual survey, International Space Elevator Consortium. But I was still surprised that, more than twice as many said, no, I haven't heard of ISEC before. But I guess the good news is I also asked them if they'd heard of National Space Society, and National Space Society didn't fare much better. But those numbers tell me that maybe ISEC has a little bit of work to do in terms of just reaching out to the general public and making them aware of who you are. Catch up here. One of the things that I was interested in when I looked at the results is that some people had low familiarity with space elevators. So I thought I'd filter my questions based on just those people who didn't know much about space elevators. So the charts on the right are the same questions as the chart on the left, but the ones on the right are those people who had low familiarity. And so when you ask them, how did my book change their understanding, the people who had low familiarity with space elevators shifted quite a bit towards significantly improved than everybody else did. And the same thing is true, I think, with will space elevators be operational within the next 50 years? People who had low familiarity after they'd read my book shifted more toward the likelihood than everybody else did. So I think what that tells me is um, that science fiction really can help convince people who are less aware about space elevators that a space elevator is possible. And so there is a role to be played, even in a fictional space elevator, for convincing people this could happen. So there's a lots more questions in the survey, but I don't have time to cover them all. I do have all of the survey published as part of the PDFs that we have for our sessions. Some of the other questions I did ask were things like, what impact will the space elevator have on space tourism? What concerns do you have about space elevators? Would you ride a space elevator? And could space elevators help clear space debris? So if you want to see the answers to those questions, you do have access to all that in the PDF. So,
1 minute.
yeah, okay. I'm happy to announce that book 2 is on its way, and I won't go through the details here, but it's basically an extension of book 1. In book 1, we had 6 space elevators spread around the Earth, each spaced 60 degrees apart. In book two, we're adding additional megastructure, and I wanted to show some of that to you and get your feedback. I could use some engineering feedback at this point. I'm only writing the first draft at this point, and I'd love to get your feedback on this. The megastructure is at 4,000 kilometers above the Earth. There's story reasons for that. But basically, it is a fixed partial ring around the Earth, supported by suspension cables that are hung onto each of the tethers. And so it's the same material, the same carbon graphene that's supporting the weight. In some cases, there's little islands that exist between the tether that are hung by suspension bridge. So here we're zooming in on one of those. And part of every science fiction book has to have really cool new technology. It's just the way you sell a story. And so in this story, I'm creating what I'm calling Hyperleap. It's a horizontal maglev train that accelerates out of a station on a maglev track until it reaches orbital velocity, which for 4,000 kilometers is 16.9 kilometers per second, and then leaps across space to its destination station. When it reaches the station, then it hits the track again. It reconnects to the electromagnets and it decelerates. So at 4,000 kilometers, and this is in the vacuum of space, by the way, so you can reach high speeds. You need a track length of 580 kilometers to accelerate at 2 Gs to get to that speed. And if you do, you'll have a transit time from a tether to that island in just about 21 minutes. So you can see by the green and red arrows there, I timed the departures and the arrivals to match, thinking that you don't want the lateral stresses of the lateral forces of a departure and arrival to be independent. You want them to coincide with each other so they offset each other. I'm also concerned a little bit about how much mass can be held on a fixed suspension system like this. I don't know what that number is. I'd love to hear some feedback on that. I also don't know how much wobble might be involved in this system because it's not it's not a rigid system. There's some flex to it. Blaze and I have been talking about some of that stuff over the past couple of weeks, and Blaze, by the way, thank you very much for all your help so far. I even created a Hyperleap train schedule to prove to myself that the timing of arrivals and departure could work. And it gave me this fun example here of if you left the Ecuador tether at 8 a.m. in the morning, you could arrive at the Sumatra tether at 10:37, 2.5 hours later. So what a hell of a great horizontal train system, far better than any jet airplanes we have on the surface. So I'll finish with this prototype. I'm working with a graphic artist right now, and we're making this model of this Hyperleap train. It'll eventually be the cover of the book. I think it'll also make a great video, book trailer video, just like we did for book one. These kind of things really help attract attention to the story, and you draw people in, and then you have an opportunity to tell them a story with real science in it. So I really appreciate the opportunity to meet with all the experts here again. We did it last year. It's very kind of ISEC to invite me back again this year. I'd love to get your feedback. If you're interested in reading the story before it goes to publication, I will be having a beta read for it. So send me an email and we'll talk. That's it.
Thank you, Doug, and congratulations on First Ascent. Really
Thanks.
good stuff.
Thanks.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, why did you consider 4,000 kilometer for the Hyperleap maglev instead of, say, 200 kilometers?
Yeah, so First Ascent, it begins with Kessler syndrome, a debris catastrophe where all LEO satellites have been obliterated. And so that's the beginning of the story. And I think that that's a realistic beginning for any science fiction story, in that LEO is now unusable. And so the beginning of the story is, well, how the heck did we get a space elevator through this debris zone, which they call the kill zone? And you'll have to read the story to get that answer. But basically, in book two opens with, you still got the debris zone. So basically everything from the top of the atmosphere to about, say 2,000 kilometers is a danger zone. And so there is this station up at 4,000 kilometers that is high enough to be out of that zone, but it's low enough to still have a 37% gravity. It's a place that you can build things, you can create new space for people to live and work. And so that's the idea. Now, of course, in science fiction, money is no object. We always have a billionaire to lean on. So there's some lack of realism there, but it's a story-based, height.
Blaze.
So I was wondering why the maglev train is so streamlined, given that it will be moving through space and probably, so fast that if it did try to go into an atmosphere, it would almost certainly burn up.
Yeah, so my artist and I have talked about that. I think the way I would describe this, and I haven't yet described it in the book, is that part of the travel has to be in pressurized space because you've got to have a train station, you've got people boarding. And so it's streamlined for that purpose. But eventually you go through an airlock, and the door closes behind you, and you lose all the air, and you're now in the vacuum of space. And that's really the way in which you get up to really high speeds, is once you're in the vacuum. So I can sort of semi-justify a streamlined shape, but you're right. I mean, it could have pop-up antennas or almost anything on it, and we're not quite done with this design yet. I might do something like that. So if you have any suggestions for how that shape ought to look differently, let me know.
Martina?
Yeah, I'm very new to space elevators, so excuse me if this is like obvious, but um, what is the level of gravity on these islands?
On where?
The islands.
Oh, on the islands. So at
Mhm.
4,000 kilometers, gravity, Earth's gravity would still exist. Of course, you're on a fixed structure, you're not orbiting. At 4,000 kilometers, gravity is 37% of what it would be at the surface. So, like the moon is 22% or something like that. It's more gravity than the moon, but obviously less than the surface of the Earth.
Okay, thank you.
Stephen?
It's to me, some of the challenges are, you'd have to get it going pretty quick. So you're going to throw some acceleration loads into those islands, and then you have to be able to control it and then try to catch it in that little bitty
Yeah.
hole there and slow it down. So I haven't I'd have to run the numbers as to how fast you have to get that thing going to skip over. But
It's
it just
16.9 kilometers per second. That's the orbital speed. And you have to be at orbital speed, right, to stay at that height.
at that height. So to me, it seems like there's a lot of controllability and the slow down and speed up. But if your island's long enough, I guess you don't have to decelerate or accelerate that quickly. But
Yeah,
it just seems like it's like threading the needle a little bit,
absolutely. And that's the beauty of science fiction, is that you want danger in science fiction. If you miss that hole by even a meter, you're going to absolutely have a cataclysmic explosion. So that's great stuff for science fiction, right? And so Blaze and I talked about this a little bit, and we were thinking, okay, so maybe that tunnel that you have to intersect is adjustable. It's got some hydraulic lifts on it. It can move around a little bit. So it's kind of like a baseball outfielder, you know, catching a fly ball. They can adjust that tunnel by a couple of meters here or there and catch that train perfectly when it comes in.
Well, I don't know what your wiggle room is, but you might want to think of more like a funnel that can electromagnetically kind of shove it down into the hole. So I don't know how
Yeah.
big that funnel would have to be, but
Yeah, and that was the opposite
artistic
design
license, right?
was make it a funnel with magnets that focused it down to the track too.
Well, you know, I understand artistic license.
Yeah.
We are into our break right now. We can still continue with questions if you want to stick around, but this is the time when you might want to go get a snack or a drink, and we will resume at 20 minutes past the hour. And I think some of us at least will stick around and talk. So, Brandon, go ahead.
Yeah, so I love the space train idea. I guess that would be the purpose. I guess the first question real quick. So would that be considered a transport to Mars? Would that be the initial design concept? Or
No,
Dennis?
Yeah, so or at least this a fictional design for this book is it's purely an around the world transportation system around the
Okay.
Earth. Yeah.
So I designed something similar, actually patented as well. But so I use the same principle for interplanetary transportation. I call it an interplanetary transportation network, and it's a series of accelerators that are positioned in, well, you know, in a path, direct line path to Mars. And so, and it does have an electromagnetic spin to it. So it's an artificial, I guess you could call it a wormhole, that they can be tuned to each other from a certain distance, you know, X. But the idea is to accelerate the spacecraft through these modules and decelerate on the other end. So that kind of fits in line with that principle as well. So I think it's kind of interesting how science and ingenuity and just the creativity of, you know, smart people, and not, you know, not that I'm a incredibly intelligent person, but I think it's a soup of creativity that we just kind of swim in. And what's amazing is the similarities of designs, originality that we come up with that I think is just really, it's just awesome. Over.
Yep. Nothing like the human imagination. Yeah.
Yep. We have my contact info, so if that's something you want to step in more, and I can show you my patent and what that looks like, and just from a realistic point of view, I think for personnel, I don't think they can handle the dramatic increase in forces, I guess. I'm not sure how much the human body can withstand on that level, but I think for cargo, especially the space-based accelerators, I think getting cargo to Mars and, you know, whatever that time difference is compared to like normal, like rocket propulsion is, you know, night and day. So maybe this would be a transportation of cargo for, you know, or automatons that will, you know, fashionably build a habitat prior to the construction crews getting there. So yeah, I think that'd be interesting.
Jim, you have your hand up? Maybe he just left it up. Anyway, we're in a break, so if you want to talk, just jump right in.
So, Douglas Phillips, quick question for you here. How much do you think it would cost to put the inertial dampeners into those train stations? You know, I think that'd be kind of an interesting way, because otherwise it seems like the braking is going to be pretty intense.
Yeah, so an inertial dampener, how would that work? Let's say you had one train coming into a tunnel.
Right.
Um, and how would an inertial dampener stop the lateral forces?
Well, it's science fiction. I mean, we have them in Star Trek and we've got them in Star Wars and everything else. And,
Yeah.
they're just a science fiction thing,
Oh,
but
okay.
they also, so if we were to quote unquote kind of figure out how it works ish, then that would,
These are like the stabilizers on the Enterprise, right? We don't know what they are, but they
We don't know what
stabilize.
they're.
but
Yeah,
we need them.
and that's the only reason I think I decided, okay, so if you have a train coming inbound, you've got to have a train going outbound at the same time. It's the only way that you're going to balance that,
Yeah, with roughly the same
one's
mass.
putting force out the other way, and they have to balance out each other. If you don't have that, that whole tether is going to bend, and yeah.
So I guess you'd have to have like a ballast car then in each train so that the mass of the trains as they leave are functionally equal. And so if you have more people or heavier cargo
Yeah,
in one
right,
direction, you have to ballast the opposite train. That way
right.
they would launch. But that means that when on the landing side, that one would also have to be ballast to receive that one. So that'd
Yeah,
be kind of interesting,
yeah,
set of,
you're right.
or
Yeah,
actually
I
what you
mean,
could
but
do then is just
like
say you're,
pilots do that today. There's sometimes you can't
Mhm.
take off in an airplane, and they'll come out and say, we need some people to come up front, or we need to see people to come to the back.
Oh yeah.
They'll balance the weight just by shifting passengers around. So we already
Yeah, we
have
used to
it
do that in the
today.
Navy on the planes whenever people would be doing their check flights as a pilot.
Yeah,
They would have the student pilot up there and he would trim the plane out and then everyone would walk forward and then the
yeah,
plane would start dipping down and then the instructor would be like, "Hey, trim this thing out." He trims it out.
yeah.
We all walk to the back and mess with him again. Oh yeah. I'm
So
looking forward to the second book.
I have a request for Douglas.
Yeah.
I would like to see a science fiction depiction of the space power grid that I described in my presentation.
Yeah, so I was interested in your power grid. So one thing I've never quite understood is why beam power. Why? I mean, if you've why do a wireless system when you've already got a wire? Why not use the wire that you're building to send the power up?
Yeah, and I did that in my ISDC presentation. So the advantage is with a space power grid, you would have multiple customers on the ground and in space, and so it would not be dedicated to the space elevator, right? And hopefully that would result in an economy that would provide better commodity pricing for the energy. But and like I said, the having the solar power satellites in lower orbits means you can use them to mitigate the Van Allen radiation belts and also
Right.
to mitigate space debris. So it was just a concept that you could do a lot of different things with a constellation, or I'm thinking maybe more like a swarm, or like a school of fish or a flock of birds, kind of, lots of solar power satellites in various orbits, and using the
Yeah.
electrodynamic tethers to have propulsionless propellantless propulsion so they can change orbits.
Hey, Doug, to
Yeah.
answer your question, it's until we have high temperature superconductors, the distances you have to travel on that wire
Yeah, right.
creates
Well,
too much,
if I
voltage
may,
dropping.
I did do the math on that, and if you could make this graphene tether a meter wide by 1 millimeter thick, you can go to reasonably high voltage and get reasonably low losses from geosynchronous to ground. But like the pushback is that they're wanting the this tether to be just 10 microns thick. And I was talking about going to 1 millimeter thick. It's almost 1 millimeter thick. This graphene is almost a superconductor.
Yeah, I remember talking with Adrian about that last year, that you can make graphene a superconductor.
Can you introduce a cooling, a way of cooling the inner layer or outer layer? I guess it'd be the inner layer before the graphene, creating a cooling void of some sort, possibly.
Yeah, right, right.
Well, it's going to be a lot of mass.
Well, cold air doesn't have any mass, right?
Right, but whatever you're putting around it to keep that cold air in place is going to have mass.
Hollow tube, some air separation.
I mean, it'll have to withstand pressures if it's, for the part that's out in space. The carbon nanotubes we're talking about here, it's only a few, order of tens of square millimeters.
Yeah, microns, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be some lab experiments just going around that.
Anything you add immediately adds weight, and all of a sudden, it's as if you had a less strong material, and the taper ratios become bad, and everything breaks down. It's really hard to just put something around the whole elevator.
What about the temperature delta from, like you said, let's just say from the ground to the atmospheric changes in temperature as you get higher up?
I didn't understand what you meant. So what about the temperature difference?
Oh, as you get, your altitude gets higher and higher until you get into like outer space, the temperatures are going to get colder and colder, right? So I think there's, like when you did the calculations, did you include the delta temperature change?
I think you're probably
Depends
asking
if you're
Avery.
facing,
Yeah.
if you're facing the sun or not is the big thing.
And also
Could be.
whether or not you're at an altitude where the air pressure is so low that convection doesn't work for you anymore.
Yeah, that's an interesting formula, huh?
Jim, do you have a question?
I think he forgot to lower his hand
Yeah,
after
I
a
think
question
so
he asked
too.
earlier.
I asked.
Yeah, I forgot to lower my hand. I went up, got some ice cream. So
Oh, ice cream. What a good idea.
yeah,
Make
Hey,
us all
Doug.
hungry, Jim.
yeah.
Doug Phillips in Chicago last year, he gave me a couple of your books, and I read them within a couple months and really enjoyed them. Appreciate it a lot. Thanks for giving me those. I like the L3 one a lot. That it's kind of interesting.
Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate that. Lost at L3 was a whole lot of fun to write.
I think it was an interesting concept. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Atlas Shrugged in reverse or something.
That's one I never read, but I don't know. I just felt like I had to do Gilligan's Island in space, that's what
I
he
can
made
see
me do.
Mr. Howell there, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Who is Gilligan though?
Nobody was Gilligan. Although I just had somebody send me email just this week saying, I've been studying Lost at L3, and I think that Prisha and I forget which other character they picked are a combination that forms Gilligan. I mean, it's a really in-depth study of these characters. So.
Just to encourage them. Yeah, yeah, it sounds great.
That's right.
It's kind of like Forbidden Planet, which was based on Shakespeare's The Tempest.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I read a lot of Peter Codron's science fiction books too, and he does that too all the time. He'll take a Shakespeare play and turn it into science fiction. He recently did I don't know, what was the book? Anyway, he picks older
Oui,
books.
bientôt, Jonathan.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was supposed to be muted.
Let's see, TJ, I guess your hand is, you don't need to put your hand up for the break. Just jump right in if you have a
Oh,
question.
sorry. I was just curious with Doug, how many people of your readers like said that they would actually go on a space elevator? I was curious about that.
Yeah, good question. I do have that data here. Let me look at it. How
There's a
many-
talk about that coming up too.
Yeah, we're about to present a study on
Oh,
that, and I got some insights to what type or when people will actually ride space elevators right now.
yeah. So in my survey, these are 190 people. 102 said yes, definitely, I would go up a space elevator. 65 said maybe with more information. 6 said no, too risky, and 17 said no, not interested.
That's much different than what I'm going to be presenting.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
We
Yeah, we're
also
looking forward
framed
to
it.
that.
Yeah, we framed it with some very specific scenarios to give them like additional details on what to expect, though.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking forward to hearing that.
I would think that the willingness to go would be what the destination would be. So if it went to like a Hilton hotel up, 200 miles or whatever, and spend a weekend up there, you'd get a lot of yeses, for doing it.